Welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Lead the Future, Change the Conversation, an unedited, honest conversation to create the future. I'm Arjan Visser, Futurist and your host, and join me as I chat with my friend Chris Harding on when leadership is the answer. What could be the question? Chris, welcome. Before I introduce you, welcome.
Thank you, Arjan. Good to see you.
Yeah. Chris is the founder of InspiredCEOs and an advisor to business owners who are ready to work on leadership, strategy, and long-term success in life, business, and society. So I'm really pleased that you have time to do this podcast recording. And
It's always a pleasure, Arjan.
yeah, we had some great conversation in the past, and I think this question is a bit cryptic, but really connects to how I introduced you. Like you're always interested in the long-term success in life, business, and society, the dynamic, the dimensions, the paradox.
It's true.
So what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, Arjan, I was reflecting on this question, and I can't help myself because every time I think about your book, there seems to be like deeper and deeper layers to be understood, right? You know, there are books I've read, and then 5 years later, something happens, and I go, "Oh, that's what they meant." You know, it's kind of you think you know it on one level, and then something happens, and you know it on a deeper level. And yeah, you know, even the word future sort of leadership, you know, we're so sort of brought up in this idea that the future is just about a timeline.
Yeah.
And the more I reflect on the book, the more I realize it's not just a timeline with a series of events. We're not just talking about how do I make a better timeline. It's more like possibility in the making. The future is possibility that is not yet, but is still possible, and we get to make it. You know, I think one of the things I found out that's definitely one of the meanings of the word leader is someone who is making the possible possible, like making it real, making it come to life. Which for me then says that this is, if the timeline is not about a series of events, it's more like a story, in which case it's about the who, not about the what. And that's where I think this question comes in as if healthy leadership is the answer, what's the question? Well, it's really a question about who rather than what. Like, who am I, you know, who am I if I'm a healthy leader? What kind of future am I creating?
Yeah, I like
who
that.
Who can create the best future? The answer is a healthy leader.
Yeah. There is that self element, of course, in the healthy leader. You know, if you want to lead healthy, you have to be healthy. I remember first time we used the term healthy leadership, it was all to actually create some language that it was not offending and onboard everyone, because everyone wants healthy. You know, if we can choose between unhealthy and healthy, I would say everyone chooses for healthy. That's why we said healthy leadership is way better than coining a leadership style. And we talked about that before, that I don't believe leadership styles exist, because the moment it's a style, there is a reason to choose it, which takes it away from leadership, because leadership needs to be authentic, or else it is a management style.
Yeah.
And
But then there's other prefixes, if you like servant leadership, authentic leadership. There's lots of different ways that people describe good leadership, right?
But that's a description, and that's what where we didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So that's why we say healthy leadership.
Yeah.
And it includes serving others with value, but it also includes living from the inside out. Like so it needs to be authentic.
Yeah. And so look, when I look around, when you think about, the election results in America this week, and or even what's going on here in our country, there is this mindset of most people wish they could predict what's going to happen so that they can maximize the opportunity for themselves. So when they're thinking about future, it's about a timeline of how do I maximize the opportunity for myself? How do I get more out of it? And I think healthy leadership, it's not a new idea in what I'm going to say, in that, there's lots of business books have been written about the idea of you have to start with vision. Like, what are you creating? It's not what can I get out of it? What kind of future can I create? Why does that matter? Who do I need to be and become in order for that to even happen? That's what comes to my mind when I think about healthy leadership. Like, it's definitely majoring more on the who than the what.
Yeah, and I think that's where the paradox is, because it is still maximizing, but in this case, it's the maximizing of who I am. And equally, it's maximizing who those people around me are that I share vision with, that influence me, that are influenced by me. So it is that it has to do with potential and maximizing, but it's not about the material gain or the what, or it's not about the thing. It's about me and them. It's about you and I. It's about, so it's an immaterial topic, but the best thing that you can bring to any setting is actually you, because no one else can bring you. So we don't want the best version of you, we want the real full version of you.
Yeah, look, I was reminded of an article I read which said that even today 80% of people reach old age with some kind of regret that they hadn't lived the life that they really wanted to live, right?
Yeah.
They hadn't taken the risks, they hadn't developed themselves, they hadn't become the fullness of who they wanted to be, even though in the timeline of life they might have achieved lots of things, experienced lots of things. When they were no longer busy doing stuff, it felt like they weren't satisfied. They're not satisfied with who they are.
Yeah.
And one of my hopes in life is that we could rediscover what work is really for in this grand adventure we call life. Like, work, business, and therefore leadership is partly, it's like a symbiotic relationship. We get to create something, and at the same time it helps to create the best of us.
Yeah.
Because it stretches us, because it forces us to, if like we really want to create the best of something, then we have to become more than we are.
Yeah, we push the boundary. But back to that report, like, I make an assumption that the average age group of these people were not in their 40s or 50s.
No.
which is actually weird, because if you would ask primary school children, age of 6, 7, do you live with regrets? Do you join anything without contributing who you are and taking yourself? Leave part of yourself behind. We would use different language, of course, when we speak to them, but the answer would, what do you talk about? Is that even a topic? That's the same with intuitive thinking. So if life is a bell curve and we are on the top of our performance, act, skills,
potentiality, all of that.
yeah, then we forget this question, which was not a question when we were a kid, and is a question with potential regret when we are retiring. That's weird, because this is the question of life. This is the question of the full potential. This is the top of the bell curve, where we live who we are made called to be.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and I think it's partly, when I listen to celebrities who, have seemingly achieved amazing things, including great wealth, so many of them, having achieved it, go, oh, this can't be all it is, right? And I was listening to someone who said that's because the pursuit of happiness is a myth. It's the happiness of pursuit. And so when you're at the top of that bell curve, when you feel like you've reached the pinnacle, what's energizing you is the pursuit.
yeah.
Because it is energizing. But it's probably energizing to our ego rather than to our most authentic self. And when all of that environment disappears, and you've retired, and you realized that you haven't become all that you could be, that's when the regret sits in.
Yeah, there are many people that play with words. Like, it just reminds me of a conference where someone said, well, if you write happening with a Y in the middle, then you've got exactly why happy is a verb and not a state. And in a way that even could say, like, when you're at the top of, you're in the pinnacle, then that's where you're the most happy. I think there is something in the journey. When I was early 20s, then people said, no, it's about the process, and I thought, no, it's about the result. So then you start your like 30, 35, and it's all about the process. Well, now 15 years later, it's not about the process, because when it would be about the process, then life is a failure. It's about the journey. And of course, a journey contains of many iterative processes or circular processes, but mainly rhythms, because it's not a timeline. So yes, it is. No, it isn't. Is always the answer to, it's about this.
Yeah, and I suspect if you were to press into many of the wisdom traditions, they would say that ultimately you discover that it's about the story, it's about the who, it's about who are we. And so, and I guess the truth is, none of those things are completely true, and none of them are completely wrong. So the results do matter, the process does matter,
The journey matters, the
the
story
journey
matters.
but but all of those things, if you like, are servants of the real thing that's going on, which is, who are we becoming?
Yeah.
How are we fulfilling the richness of what life is for?
Yeah.
I got so into your question, I Googled, what is the probability of me being here? And the answer is 1 in 10 to the power of 2.68 million. And
Okay.
and when you think that the number of atoms in the universe is only one is 10 to the power of 80, and the probability of me being here and you being here is 10 to the power of 2.68 million zeros,
That's equal to none.
there is something unique about you and me that is here to be you and me,
Yeah.
to express that uniqueness, and which sounds to me like more than just a bag of cells.
Yeah.
There's a uniqueness of becoming, and we're getting a little bit,
Philosophical.
ethereal and philosophical here, but I think that is part of the question. What is my worldview? What is my philosophy of life? Because however I answer the question as to what is the question if healthy leadership is the answer will depend on a whole bunch of things, including what's my worldview.
Yeah. So it depends on your worldview. It depends on how aware are you of who you are becoming.
Yeah.
Um, it is your perspective on future. Is
Yeah.
the timeline linear, circular, or is the rhythm? Are we just now? And it's like a future story coming by, and part of it becomes me, and others just vaporize. All those things. But actually, it doesn't matter what the answer is if you approach it that way. The answer is, I have a desire to do good. I think that's quite universal. Or there is something off. There are people who don't have the desire, but there is always something happened. So if the desire is to do good, contribute, be a blessing, receive a blessing, be favorable, receive favor, then the question is, I have to own my own well-being.
Yeah. And I guess the first step is to realize that all of that is a choice. I choose my worldview. I choose my attitude. I choose my posture. I choose whether I continue to grow and develop. I choose how I see work in this adventure called life. I choose how I see vision, mission, purpose. I get to choose that. Um, and if you really want to break it down, every day I get to wake up choosing what my posture, what my attitude to today is going to be as a leader that has the potential to make a difference, has a potential to manifest goodness and kindness and, impact for good. And
Yeah. Well, if you go more into that, like the impact for good, then you have the power, the unlimited power of imagination. That is one of the power tools to imagine what you want it to look like. And so you use your imagination, what the future, how the future will manifest, what it look like, where you will be, who you have become. And all these exercises are not just a waste of time. They are really strategic because they define how you prepare for what is not yet. And how you will prepare determines how you will be reacting when it happens. Are you reacting with an anticipation, or will you react with judgment and based on it doesn't meet my expectation? All those things determine if you step into the new possibility or let it go by. And if you let it go by, not saying that's right or wrong, but then it doesn't become part of you. So that's again where the choice is. If you choose to anticipate, prepare, imagine what how it will look like, then you will have the choice to step in or let it go by when it appears.
Yeah, there's an ancient wisdom that basically says that without that vision, that imagination, people just get blown around by every wind that blows.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a direction, they don't have a course that's been set.
And then we talk about a real vision, not some part of understanding and repetition and control we have, because that's what we
Yeah,
hear a
so
lot. A real
by
vision.
vision, I mean, what can I create? What am I creating that makes life and the world better than it is? Not, which is different to a target. How much can I extract from the world?
Yeah.
What can I give to the world? That kind of vision. And why does it matter? What difference is it going to make? And what kind of leader would I need to be to bring that vision to life? I would need to be a healthy leader who is aware of all these seemingly paradoxical things in play. I would need to be aware of, my own demons. I would need to be aware of my own potential. I'd need to be aware of, I'd need to be skilled. All of those things just make life richer.
Yeah.
But it starts with a vision of what's the highest good I could create in the world.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is the question. If the question is, who would I need to be to live my best life and create the highest good I could possibly create in the world? The answer is a healthy leader. For me, that's how I would.
Well, the other thing, I think, if I don't like reality, which is a perception, this is how we perceive what's happening. If I don't like it, how do I change my perception of reality and start seeing what I really get happy about, excited about, joyful about? Because it is that thing that I desire deep inside when I'm truly honest. It is that thing why I'm here. And, you can see it, you can miss it. So if you want to change your perception of reality, I think the question is also healthy leadership, work on your choice
Yeah.
of what you think, what you imagine, what you hear, what you see.
Yeah. And look, in some ways, that comes back to my thought about the curse of our age is that everybody wants predictability. Like,
Yeah.
All I need is the information and the skills, as if the future is a extrapolation of the present.
Or the past.
And you only have to know a little bit of history to know that is highly unlikely.
Yeah.
That the future is likely to be very different to the present. And we get to choose what the future is like by the decisions and the choices we make today. So that's why I think it's important to imagine, well, what is the best I could imagine?
Yeah.
Which is not about what's the most I can extract.
Yeah.
From
although there are really people that need predictability, and then I think if you study history with a healthy perspective and perceive it, then there is so much in history that communicates what will be the future, because it's not a timeline. It will, but it will look different, or it will be perceived different, or it will be applied different but there are so many rhythms that are not circular or linear, but they seem to keep on happening.
Yeah.
Just look at like that. We had a year ago, we had an energy crisis. 51 years ago, we had an oil crisis. 101 years ago, we had a gold crisis. It seems to that we have every time a resource crisis about some unhealthy leadership who wants to take it all and control. So there are rhythms and
Yeah.
patterns to be discovered. But to wrap it up, what are the 3 keywords of our short conversation in the podcast?
The 3 keywords for me, I've got to narrow it to 3. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Um, I think healthy perspective matters, right?
Perspective,
Yeah. Um,
identity. You
yeah.
started with
Who
who,
you are becoming. Who is a real thing.
yeah,
And I think the other one then would be story.
story.
What story are you? And the reason for that is because if the future is just a timeline, then it's just about events. But if it's a story unfolding, then I'm a character in that story. Who am I going to be?
Yeah.
And
So who am I going to be in the story that is currently written, and
is
what
being written,
perspective do I have?
and therefore what perspective is both about reality and possibility.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to ponder on those 3.
Okay, me too.
And for our listeners, thank you for joining, or the replay. Chris mentioned already the book. So on the outro of our live stream, there will be the link to the book, businessrevivalists.com/book, if you want your copy for the price you want to invest. And but also, if there's anything that triggered you, and actually I think that's my main request to you, make a step into healthy leadership and connect with peers, connect with Chris, connect with me, and start the conversation, start the dialogue with your peers, with others. Don't let just this trigger just evaporate and not be part of you, but actually be a neutral trigger that initiates your new growth cycle. So I just welcome you to connect. businessrevivalist.com/connect. The link is also in the screen. Both links will also be in the podcast comments. So don't let it go this moment, and act and live a healthy life with healthy leadership for yourself and others. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
I think we've got more questions than answers, but we'll keep
Yeah, look,
doing on it.
as you were laying out that invitation there, the thought that came to my mind was, if you're just looking for simple answers to obvious questions, try Google. If you're wanting to explore the full potential of who you are and what's possible, come and join the conversation.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
it will, because that what you're looking for will reveal itself to you. It's not already written.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. Until the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Cool. See you.